people coming in as the debate goes on, so if we could just leave some room by the door, scoot in. I know it's very cramped, but they're gonna need space as they come in. Also, if you did hear, we have pizza coming, it's on the way. Please don't let it interrupt the debate. You don't want it to interrupt your favorite candidate. Anyways, let's get started. Welcome everyone to USC's Undergraduate Student Government 2020 Presidential Debate. My name is Trevor Sochocki, and I am one of your moderators for tonight.
And I'm Nisha, Venkat. This debate is the product of a collaboration between USC Undergraduate Media and the Undergraduate Student Government. Both these organizations hope that this debate helps promote transparency between candidates and students on a variety of issues across the campus. Thank you all so much for being here.
Before we begin, these are the rules for tonight's debate. Tonight's questions have been written by the USC Annenberg Media editorial team with input from the students. Each candidate gets 1 minute to answer a question. If another candidate is mentioned, they will get 30 seconds to respond to that question. Some questions address specific candidate platforms. If this is so, there will be an opportunity for other candidates to comment afterwards. Please, audience, keep your clapping and cheering to a respectful level. We have a lot of questions to get through, and we want to make sure that everyone gets their voice heard.
We've divided the debate into 3 sections: student life, transparency, and sustainability. After our last section, we will have some time for a few questions from our audience. Candidates will also have a 90-second opening and closing statement.
So, let's get started. Alrighty, there we go. So we're going to start from the left and move our way on this way. So, Truman Rose, if you could give your opening statement.
Of course. Hi everyone, my name is Truman Fritz. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm a junior majoring in business administration.
My name is Ritch. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm a junior majoring in law, history, and culture and sociology.
Rose and I are running to be your next student body president, vice president, because we believe in bringing unity to this campus. We have 5 years of on-campus leadership between us, and through our time inside and outside USG, we have managed teams and solved problems, and as our current roles as an executive officer and senator in USG, we've managed and piloted key programs as well as built key relationships with administrators. We want to bring that same aptitude to be your next president, vice president.
Our vision is built around 4 main platform points: accountability, sustainability, inclusion, and wellness. Well-being, we want to prioritize the well-being of the students and their physical and mental needs. For accountability, we want to bring students to the table in important decision-making processes. Sustainability, we want to lead Southern California in sustainable practices. And for inclusion, we want to build equitable systems to help bring minority groups to the table.
Now, we're going to be talking about policy all night, and there's a lot of candidates up here, and we all have different ideas about how USG and USC can improve. But what differentiates Rose and I from our competitors is that we believe in 3 things: dedication, directness, and engagement. You can ask anybody in USG, and they will attest to our passion and our work ethic within USG. With directness, we want to not mince words, we want to be direct with the student body, and we want to not paint fancy pictures with fancy words. And of course, engagement. We want to expand our vision beyond this table and the 2 people standing at it right now by partnering with organizations, communities, and students who have been typically underrepresented or under-neglected by USG.
Alrighty guys, I'm sorry I have to cut you off. Christine and Miles, you're up next.
Hello. Hi everyone, my name's Nguyen. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm so excited to be running as your USG president.
Hello everyone, my name is Miles K. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm running to be your next student body vice president.
So growing up, I come from a very traditional Asian household, and I really didn't see a lot of Asian American women in positions of leadership. So for me, I draw a lot of my inspiration and my passion for service from my parents, who are refugees that escaped the Vietnam War in 1975. I'm running to be your next undergraduate student president because I want to connect communities here on campus and to ensure that USG, as one of the largest student organizations on campus, continues to improve, grow, and realistically represent the needs of every undergraduate student here at USC.
Most importantly, Christine and I are running because we want to serve you, our Trojan family. The 5 ideal aspects of a Trojan are as follows: faithful, scholarly, skillful, courageous, and ambitious. For Christine and I, these are more than just words. They're ideals which we have infused into every aspect of our campaign. Together, we bring together leadership experience from across campus, both within and outside of USG. Our platform consists of 4 main goals related to wellness, inclusion, sustainability, and communication. And we look forward to sharing more with you about these goals and how we will achieve them tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Sara, Rohit, it's your time.
Hi everyone, my name is Sara Khoshniyati, pronouns she, her, hers, and I'm running to be your next USG president.
Hello everyone, my name is Rohit, Bolla, pronouns he, him, and his, and I am running to be your next student government vice president.
Our vision for USC is one that empowers, protects, and advocates for all 20,000 undergraduate students. Through my role as a USG senator, I've had the opportunity to meet with administrators such as Dr. Folt, to work on initiatives such as Tax Off in the Village, diversifying the food options in the dining halls, and installing complementary menstrual products in gender-neutral restrooms across campus. Rohit and I were motivated to run after having really amazing conversations with administrators, student leaders, and peers who have all left their own impactful footprints on campus. We owe it to them and we owe it to you all to change this campus for the better.
We recognize real issues, but more importantly, we recognize real solutions. My experience with funding at USG allowed me to see several organizations that have previously not been integrated with USG. That's an issue. My role will allow for us to capture a spirit of the student body that has not previously been seen in student government.
Both of us here at USC have found a community that has shaped us greatly, and we want that experience to be shared by all Trojans. As we enter into a new decade, we enter into a new beginning. This is our opportunity to start with change. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you. Christopher, Trinity, you have the floor.
Oh, yep. I thought you said it was on. She said turn it on. Okay, hello. My name is Christopher McMorran. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I am currently a USG senator and a previous advocacy director and elections commissioner in USG. And I'm studying film and television production and political science.
Hi, I'm Trinity. I study urban studies and planning in architecture, and I'm running to be your next USG vice president. Here, since we've been working together, Christopher and I found that we've shared a lifelong mission and passion for advocacy. We continued that here at USC in the Senate, working as a senator, and we've been passionate about working with transfer students, spring admins, advocating for more sustainable and equitable practices across campus, accessibility and student health, and first for our Trojan workers, every part of the Trojan family.
I'm extremely proud of the work that Trinity and I have done this year to work on an incredible amount of legislation that has had real lasting impacts on huge areas of the Trojan family. We're not just talking about hypotheticals, we're not just making promises, these are our passions, this is what drives us, and we are not here because we want a title or we want a certain position. We are here because we want to keep seeing USC improve, and because no matter what happens next week in this election, we want to see these projects continue, and we're so excited to talk with you about them tonight. That being said, I think I speak for all of us when I say that if the pizza comes while we're talking, we won't be mad at you if you go get it. It's gonna be a long night, we could all use it.
Alrighty, thank you so much. Alrighty, that ends our opening statement section. We're now going to move on to questions. So our first section is student life. This past year, we saw Nguyen create a new 5th floor for mental health, but many students still believe we need more mental health resources. What, if any, are your plans to address the mental health crisis on campus? And we're going to begin with Christopher and Trinity.
Yeah, I mean, I think like most everybody in the room, last semester was both a tragedy, but also to some degree a wake-up call. There was really no way of fully processing the events, but I think as I worked through it myself, it transitioned from sadness to anger to sort of a drive to never let this happen again. And it's by no means just last semester. This is an epidemic that's reaching all across campuses, across the nation, across the world. And I'm very happy with the progress that the Student Health Center has been promising, has been making. I I think opening the 5th floor for psychiatric services, referring fewer people off campus is a fantastic start. But the bottom line is that you need to make sure people know how to access these services in a crisis before they get to that level. There's two sides to this. There's the clinical side and the community side. We need to make sure that the resources are accessible, so when you ask for help, help is there for you, and you know how to get to it. But we also need to emphasize community building and ensuring that people have safety nets and people that they feel comfortable reaching out to, so that we can hopefully avert crises before they start. Those are our two main areas of focus in this, to focus on the clinical side, but then also focus on why are we putting Band-Aids on bullet holes, where are these wounds coming from, and how can we stop them from starting in the first place.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Sara and Rohit.
So as a high-tier institution, we want our resources to match our rankings, and I'm currently a pre-health student. My main aspiration in life is to help others, and I know that the Student Health Center isn't doing that. We not only want to diversify the staff at the health center to match the 20,000 undergraduate students, but we also want to increase the number of counselors. Currently there are 39 counselors for 20,000 undergraduate students. That's about 500 students to a counselor, which is completely unacceptable. We want to expand hours. We read the Daily Trojan this morning, and we are grateful that the Student Health Center is taking strides to improve the resources that are available, but the truth is that we need to have a 24/7 student health center because emergencies happen at all times and all hours of the day, and we need to have a protocol set in place for mental health crises so we can better protect our students, because currently USC is making strides, but we have so much work to do and we have so much to expand upon.
All right, thank you. Christine Miles.
So I think I'm not the first to say that mental health is a systemic issue that affects every single community here at USC. And the reality of the matter is that although we continue to push Nguyen to do better and to be better, it's simply not working. And so for us, our strategy is to really make sure that we integrate mental health into as many areas of student life as possible. So for us, it's not only taking on mental health on Nguyen's level, but it's trying to create new programs, whether that be on the academic end, or on the educational end, or internally within USG, in order to ensure that we address mental health at all angles possible.
So as Christine stated, Nguyen cannot be our only solution. One of the solutions that we've proposed is implementing mental health programming and initiatives specific to each academic school, such as school-specific counselors, forums for students to discuss the unique stressors of life at that school, and other things which USG can support. When elected, this will be one of our top priorities.
Thank you. Truman and Rose.
Now, I think I speak for all of us when we say that USC is a business, it's a corporation, and we are customers at it, and that's the way we've been treated for the last few years, for our entire time in USC, and for the past decade or more. There's no money in student health. There's no money in student experience. Why would USC put money towards it? We've had multiple conversations with health administrators that agree with this fact. They don't put money towards student health. That is what has created things such as long wait times, restricted hours, off-campus referrals. So what all these things that we face on a daily basis and that Rose and I face personally all come back to where the money is. If administrators are focused on the student first mentality, they should focus on putting money where the students are. So our plan is threefold. It's first increasing that funding, making sure we're actually prioritizing that when we actually do budget allocations. Second, making sure that we are communicating the resources and that people are aware of the resources here on campus. But also, third, taking a proactive approach in destigmatizing mental health, thinking about the way that we talk with it. One of the campaigns that we've been fortunate enough to work on this year is Seize the Awkward, which gives students the ability to talk to one another and the tools to talk to one another about getting support. So we think that threefold approach is really, really important for not only the reactive support, but actually changing the culture that we have at USC now.
All right, thank you. Moving on to question number 2. Now, this question is in regards to Sara and Rohit's platform. So, you two want to allocate funds to sponsor organization ideas for the surrounding homeless population. Beyond ideas for organization, how will you improve USC's relationship with the South Los Angeles community?
So I'm currently the president of a homeless service organization here on campus called Holistic Healthcare Advocates, where we really want to increase community engagement with the surrounding population by mentoring students at the at shelters where there are a lot of youth who lack that mentorship. I think community engagement is a huge component of our campaign because in order to be a high-tier institution, we need to ensure that all students are taking strides in communicating with the population. We want to support service organizations through USG funding. Rohit here was the director of the philanthropy branch, so he can speak a lot to the different funding needs of these organizations in order to actually go out and ensure that all students here have the opportunity to engage with the population and find out their needs, because the homeless population is only growing annually, and we need to ensure that we as students have the skills and the resources available to assist the population in its entirety.
My role as a funding director for philanthropy showed me two things. One, that the school does engage with the community, and there are organizations on this campus who serve the people around our school. And two, this community around USC needs a lot more help than it's currently getting.
Unfortunately, we have to cut you off there. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Trevor, I want you to move a little bit people on this way because there are tons of people outside.
Gotcha.
Because on that two couches, they are not in the shot. So if people who are sitting over there can move a little bit to the left.
Scoot over, guys. Get comfortable.
Yeah, they're not in the shot.
There is still some space over here. We know it's a plenty of space.
Yeah.
Get comfy.
Oh. But never mind, I mean, like...
Yeah, you guys can't sit there. No, they can't. They can't. Excuse me, you guys gotta spoke to them. There's no sitting here entirely. We just took sorry. Who did? Because we had the Annenberg Henry. Can you tell them not to sit beside you because it's the chairs?
Alrighty, we can bring it back. Everyone comfortable again?
Oh, the camera.
And a little intermission. Throughout the night. Alrighty. So, just as a reminder, the question that we will now open up to the rest of the candidates, how will you improve USC's relationship with the surrounding Los Angeles community? We're going to go to Christine and Miles.
So over the past few years, I've had the unique privilege of being able to serve as the service director for the Trojan Knights. In that regard, I've had the opportunity to plan both weekly and annual events, including events working with the homeless in South Central and the area around USC. I think most importantly, it's important for us to remember that we're all human beings, and everyone deserves to be treated equally. We need to destigmatize this issue on campus, and also recognize that homelessness is not just something that exists outside of USC, it's something that exists close to home as well.
So although it is really important for us as USG leaders to continue fostering these relationships with community members, we also have to recognize too, to support our students who actually experience college homelessness as well. Some resources that are really important to USG are things like the Trojan Food Pantry, which really help to support students that are struggling with food insecurity. So things like that and those kind of resources that support our homeless students on campus are super important and need to be continually perpetuated as we move forward.
Alrighty, thank you. Truman and Rose.
This is a really important issue, and USC, as large as it is not bringing in the community in the way that it needs to be. One way we've not been doing this is by supporting the workers here on campus. As many of you are aware, United Workers 11 is a union here that's been trying to fight for fairer wages, better hours, more fair treatment of their workers, and I think by empowering our students to become advocates and to work with them to help have fair living conditions, I think is a crucial part because many of them are local members of our community. Additionally, by integrating USC into the LA community, this pulls in by working with civic engagement. Bringing this as a place for people to have their voices heard on a national level. By voting, this is something that exists right now but is not being publicized nearly enough and is something that we need to work much more towards.
Alright, thank you. Christopher and Trinity.
I think that we have to approach community engagement very sensibly. We can't approach it from the mindset of saviors. We can't have a savior complex and believe that USC is going to help or make the community any better than it already is. We have to respect the fact that our community members have valuable resources and have assets of their own just as we do. And we should make it a partnership instead of a one-way interaction where we are giving them something that they supposedly need. And this will work by, number one, giving students the opportunity, as Sara and Rohit said, to become more actively engaged with the surrounding community. Because at the end of the day, we're here for 4 years, but there are so many people in the surrounding communities and neighborhoods that have been here for generations and that will continue to be here.
And then in addition to that, I think we need to do more research or more outreach into local high schools to ensure that USC students are also from the USC area. We're not just transplanting people and bringing people in from other areas. And I also just really quick want to touch on something that Truman and Rose mentioned about the Unite Your Local 11 labor negotiations. I think that is absolutely crucial, and I would encourage the entire student body, including those of you here, to look more into that. I wrote a resolution that passed the Senate last semester to support those labor negotiations, and Trinity and I have both been intimately involved in the student organizing committee for that.
Unfortunately, we're going to cut you off there.
That's absolutely fine.
Alrighty. This next question, in keeping with USG debate history, is from Trenton Stone, the current USG president. Alrighty. Pretend the senior administrators are in the room. This could include the USC president and or anyone from their senior team. Tell them about one initiative you'd like to pursue during your term and how you'd accomplish it within a year. And this time we'll begin with Christina Miles.
If any of the USC administrators were in the room, I would totally fangirl and freak out because Carol Folt is like my hero. But besides that, I would really want to push our specific school wellness program. I think that is extremely important considering that mental health is a crisis that affects every single student in our USC community as a whole. This project is something that is going to take time, it's going to take a lot of development, and for us to be able to start off right off the bat, that is very, very crucial and important.
Just to echo what Christine said, mental health is not an issue that is going to go away, and it's time for us as students to start joining in on the conversation, working with administrators, and finding avenues for improvement, such as the school-specific mental health program and beyond.
Alrighty, thank you.
Nearly a quarter of students at USC are international students, but the school does not have any need-based scholarship or financial support for these international students, even in emergencies. Would you develop any policy to support international students, and if so, what would it be? Let's start with Truman and Rose.
So as current senator in USG, the Speaker of our Senate, Emily Donahue has been working incredibly hard on implementing an emergency fund and working with administration to help develop this. We would absolutely like to continue to support this and obviously extend this to the international population because it's a disappointment that a massive population on this campus does not have access to the same financial resources as students from the United States, and that really needs to be addressed.
I just realized I made a mistake. I apologize. I didn't let the rest of you respond to that. I totally just skipped by you. So we're going to go back to the previous question. I apologize. We started with Christine and Miles. Let's move on to Sara and Rohit. So I'll repeat the question. Tell the senior administrators one initiative you'd like to pursue during your term, and how you'd accomplish it within a year.
So, similar to Christina Miles, we really want to emphasize that we need better mental health resources. We want to see a representative counseling service that can talk to the needs of all 20,000 undergraduate students. So there's a language barrier in the population and no counselors to really address that. We know that there's a problem in our counseling services. How are these students supposed to utilize the resources that are supposed to be universal and for the entire student body? Additionally, we want to train counselors in specific organizations' needs. We want to ensure that there is a specific counselor for different groups on campus that can talk to the needs of those students.
we realize as students, we pay the tuition bill that goes to the compensation of our administration. So the well-being of our students is of the utmost priority. Given the events of last semester, mental health is not an item that needs to be talked about. It needs to be put on paper. And we believe that the first way to go about it is by doing mental health with Nguyen.
Alrighty, thank you. Christopher and Trinity.
Anyone that has any experience with me and USG will not be surprised to hear me say this, but I think that all of the issues that the candidates have been talking about tonight are incredibly important. However, the key to getting all of them done is having more student representation in the highest levels of university decision making. The only way to get the trustees to listen, to get administrators to listen consistently, is by having a student on the board of trustees. By having a student there, that will allow us to really reach out and make sure that trustees who, quite frankly, are incredibly out of touch with the lives of everyday students are actually aware of how these issues like mental health, like sustainability, like accountability can be solved. Because at the end of the day, every single failure that USC has had recently has been a lack of administrative accountability and a lack of oversight from administration and a lack of connection with our students. So day one, I would want to tell USC administration that we need to get a student on the board of trustees, present research that shows peer institutions of ours who have trustees are incredibly in favor of that, and then work with Caruso and Folk and the entire board to implement a strategy to get a student on the board.
Thank you. Truman and Rose.
Well, Rose and I share that sentiment. We actually have something on our platform and in our vision for USC next year that we think and will actually promise tonight to be able to do next year in our administration, which is establishing student advisory committees for different departments and different offices on campus to directly advise student administrators, not from the USG perspective, but from the actual student perspective. This is a very feasible platform point that we think, that we know that Folt and VP Student Affairs, Winston and Chris are both interested in doing next year. And we want to be able to pilot that and make sure that that doesn't just happen for Folt and Chris, that happens for senior administrators and administrators on every level of our university. There's been a lack of representation, as Chris said, in student administration, but it's not just the trustees, it's every level of administration through this university, and that ties back to every single platform point that we have: well-being, inclusion, accountability, and sustainability. We know we can get that done.
All right, thank you.
All right, Truman and Rose, since you didn't get to answer the question about international students fully, you will be first to answer this question. Just as a reminder, the question is, would you develop any policy to support international students financially, and if so, what would it be? Let's start with you.
So as I said earlier, there is actually right now a process, an emergency fund being developed by one of the current senators in USG. And this is something that we would like to continue because it is an entirely feasible, entirely doable option here for USC. Something that I've been working on personally in Senate is something called a financial literacy program through a program called iGrad. Myself and the current vice president have been working on to rebrand and redevelop this. It is an option then to give students financial literacy, how to make budgets, how to have money management. So when you go out into the real world, you know how to have financial security in yourself. And this starts with, this is something that is applicable to every student here on this campus, including the international students, and it's something that we would like to see move forward next year.
Thank you. Christine and Miles?
Senator Emily Donohue's emergency fund proposal is something that we fully support 100%. The problem here at USC is that we don't really talk about economic diversity at all. People kind of expect you to be able to fund 30-night dinners or go out every night or be able to sport on expensive outfits. But the reality is that not many students can afford that kind of LA stereotypical lifestyle. And so for us, it's making sure that we see this proposal go through, putting pressure on the administration, and also working with International Student Assembly as an access point in order to see the effects and plans of this proposal taking place. We want to make sure that we incorporate as many community members as possible to make sure that our resources are reaching as many students as possible on campus.
Sara and Rohit?
So as highlighted in our initiatives, we really want to support the International Student Assembly by giving them the same resources that students here have. We want to ensure that there is a financial literacy workshop, like Truman and Rose said, and also ensuring that we fund the ISA through our $2.5 million budget to foster community events. We find that After speaking to a lot of members of ISA, we've seen the discrepancy in funding towards their committee and other committees, so we really want to ensure that we give them the opportunity and resources to really excel. Additionally, highlighted in our platform, we want to make the cost of living in Los Angeles as affordable as possible. We get that there are a lot of expenses here, so we have an emergency funding grant that we really want to allocate for all students in terms of familial or medical crises. This would be extended to all students, of course, including the international student community.
Thank you. Christopher and Trinity?
Yeah, I think that this issue speaks to a larger issue at USC, which is that we need to treat people as people and not just quotas or numbers. We can't just admit certain numbers of people and call it a day. We need to make sure that we back that up with resources, with support once they get to campus. I think for this issue specifically, it's a little tricky because we do not offer need-based financial aid to international students due to federal education policy. However, I don't know if y'all heard, but we just got, I don't know the exact number, but it was like $260 million donation. And that is not the first time in USC's history that folks have seen appropriate to give us a ridiculous sum of money. And I think that it's the least we can do to put that money towards making college more affordable. That should be the bottom line priority for administration, making sure that people can pay to go here without being saddled with a lifetime of debt. And right now, that is unfortunately too often put as a burden on our international students.
Thank you. Last year, conservative commentator Michael Knowles held an event at USC titled "Men Are Not Women and Other Uncomfortable Truths." What is your stance on whether or not speakers like Knowles should be allowed back on campus for the purpose of protecting free speech, while their rhetoric may undermine minority groups at USC? Let's start with Christopher and Trinity.
Let's do it. Well, first of all, I just want to say that that's absolutely horrible, and that is not what we stand for here. I think that the big thing we can do is obviously make sure that we are reaffirming members of our community who are often attacked like that. And then as far as a structural change within USG, one of our platform points is to move RSO recognition under the USG judicial branch. So if it is believed by a student that an RSO violated campus activities policy, they can bring that complaint to the judicial branch and have it heard out in a fair and independent manner. This is also applicable to groups that have lost recognition and would like to gain their recognition again. They can bring that before the judicial branch to have their case heard. But I think we need to do everything we can to make it clear that that kind of rhetoric is not acceptable at USC and is not acceptable within USG. And USG should absolutely not fund events that lead to attacks on members of our community.
Sara and Rohit?
So the priority of student government here is to make sure that the experience at USC is encompassing of every student. And while we obviously want everyone to have the ability to express their own speech and their ideas, it absolutely has to be taken into account how those ideas affect and impact other communities. I can speak from personal experience that these demonstrations of biases and different demonstrations of stances, while they allow people to express certain sentiments, they do inflict a lot of bad energy in a community that does not need it at all. While USG needs to have better support and structural systems to address the idea of free speech, it needs to be prioritized that students are affected by these sentiments.
Yeah, as president and vice president, our main goal is to protect the student body, and there's such a fine line between hate speech and free speech, so we want to ensure that first and foremost, we're protecting all students on campus and ensuring that no minority groups or any groups on campus are being affected by hateful rhetoric.
Christine Miles?
Yes, so there's definitely a difference when it comes to hate speech and free speech. As a political science student, I have studied these case laws literally ever since I stepped foot here on campus. And a famous judge once said in Tinker v. Des Moines, you don't leave your rights and freedoms at the school door, at the house at the school door. And so for us, we want to make sure that we protect our students' free speech, but we want to make sure that we protect the underrepresented communities here on campus. And in specific regard to this situation for us, when this event happened, we want to make sure that we support our LGBTQ Resource Center, Plaza, and Sage, really work with them and host town halls, discussions to make sure that these minority communities are continuously represented and supported here on campus.
Truman and Rose?
Rose and I absolutely affirm that student safety is the #1 priority whenever any event is ever being held on campus. We need to do more relationship building, more advising on DPS decision making and how DPS approaches student safety on an everyday basis. And we want to make sure that when events like that happen, when Ben Shapiro comes to campus, when there are a considerable number of discriminatory events on campus, we are prioritizing student safety and making sure that all students are well and whole at the end of the day.
And I think just to echo what all the other candidates have said, this is a space where every student should feel valued and included and not be ostracized from the community. And hate speech does that exactly. And so we want to promote a culture of having inclusive dialogue, of being able to come to the table with parties and figure out how to come to a solution, but while ensuring that everyone is feeling included and valued in this USC community.
I believe the pizza's here now, so we're gonna break for 5 minutes to heal up and back in.
Do you have any gluten-free pizza?
5 minutes.
Alright, everyone. If everyone can please scooch in. Get close. There's empty seats. I can see them right here. There's some space against the back wall. Come on in. There's plenty of floor space. The fire marshal will kick us out eventually, so we're going to have to all scoot in here while we can. The pizza is all gone, I promise. There's no pride going for it now. Candidates, can you hear me? Can you hear me, candidates? Alright, there's just a question asked. If you're allowed to pick up the mic and hold it in your hand and pass it, you're very much allowed to do that. If you feel like you're not being heard enough, feel free to pick the mic from the stage. Alrighty. Can everyone quiet down, please? We're going to begin. We're going to begin with our next section. Thank you.
Now we're going to be moving on to our next section, transparency and accountability. First question. Many believe that USG has little power to make change beyond passing resolutions. How would you change that? And how can you ensure the change students want to see actually happens? Let's start with Christine Miles.
I will definitely go to say that USG's influence here on campus can extend beyond just passing resolutions. For example, this past, maybe 2 weeks ago, ESA hosted their climate strike to encourage that the USC administration disclose and divest from using fossil fuels. And actually, the tangible result from that climate strike was President Holt announcing the actual $277 million divestment fund, which is something that is very influential and impactful. So moving forward, our goal is to really try to empower as many students as possible to continue to reach out to USG's resources in order for us to continuously represent the needs of the student body to the best of our ability.
And in everything we do, as Christine said, it's important that we're putting students first. We don't want to be up on some pedestal that is unattainable to the students. We want to be continuously hearing you. We want to hear your concerns. We want to go to your events. We want to go to your club meetings so that we can understand what issues you care about, how we can represent them, and how we can make change happen.
Thank you. Let's move on to Sara and Rohit.
So I get this question all the time. My friends always ask me, what does USG do? And I think this is a problem due to accessibility. Not a lot of people know what student government really does. I tell my friends that we have free blue books, we have free legal counseling, we just got free HIV testing for all students regardless of insurance. So it definitely is a problem with accessibility and students really not knowing what student government does. We've made a long list of initiatives and platform points that we really want to push through, and we really want to do this through restructuring the organization. So we're not only passing resolutions, but we're advocating for different student groups on campus whose voices aren't really amplified in student government. So through restructuring, we hope to pass the whole list of initiatives by grouping the advocacy branch with the legislative branch and making USG more effective and accessible for all students on campus.
Let's move on to Christopher and Trinity.
Yeah, I think again, like other candidates have mentioned, this is a question we all get a lot. And I think that's fair that a lot of times resolutions don't lead to where we want them to go, but it doesn't have to be that way. I'm really proud of the resolutions that Trinity and I have worked on this year because all of them have led to real tangible change that the administration has taken. And that's because we put in the work in the resolution to really do the research, outreach with administrators, with student groups before we passed it. We weren't just doing it to make a splash, to make a headline, we were doing it because this is something that we wanted to see get done. And that's how you make this happen. USG's biggest power is soft power. I think to quote current USG Vice President Maheen, USG is sort of a giant consulting firm for students. And the only way that we can get stuff done is by having those relationships with administrators, with campus organizations, with all kinds of communities, and using those relationships to build a coalition to get things done, and that's exactly what we've been doing and exactly what we'll keep doing.
Thank you. Truman and Rose?
I think I agree with the other candidates here on stage when I say that partnerships is one of the most important aspects of how USG can be better involved in the community. I think this past year we haven't done enough to be external actors, whether it's going out to organizations, going out to student clubs, whether it's going out to individual students and communities. USG needs to be more ingrained in the USC culture from day one. We need to do better outreach when you join the Trojan family, when you are accepted. You need to know what student government is. We need to be on the active side of that. We depend too often for students to find out what resources are available to them without going out to them and into the community. And Rose and I have been doing that. As the head of communications, I focus on solving that problem every single day of my life in the past year. And Rose, as a senator, has been representative of the 20,000 students here on campus. We both want to be able to do that next year by forming a student leadership coalition, by doing more RSO visits as your president, vice president, and making sure that there's just more general transparency as to what USG is actually accomplishing.
Thank you. Culture town halls and discussion sessions, sorry, it was have been held throughout the semester so far. While these have been considered a step in the right direction, how will you hold the administration accountable to the students, alumni, and the greater community, especially the many students who have not been able to attend these sessions but still want in on the process? Let's start with Sara and Rohit.
I want to reiterate that I believe that these town halls are really important, but accessibility again is a huge issue. We're currently live streaming this debate, so students at home can watch it. I believe that this needs to be done for all town halls, so we can disseminate the knowledge and information that we're spreading. I believe town halls are the main motivator in creating our platform. It's because we got real insight into the issues that are prevalent on campus, and really were motivated by the students who attended the town halls and expressed these concerns.
It's no doubt that this university has experienced so much growth the past couple of years, but all of the issues that have arisen due to that growth have become because the students have not been aware of what direction the school is going. When we don't know what's happening with the administration and what the direction of the school is, we lack transparency on what our experience here at USC is.
All right, Truman and Rose?
Communication and transparency is a huge issue with USG, with USC, and a lot of organizations. One of the things that Rose and I, that I did in my time as the Senior Director of Communications, is establish the project tracker and the Advo-Ledge tracker for weekly project tracking for the advocacy and legislative branches to make sure that students are aware of what is actually going on in those sides. But in doing those town halls and in actually reaching out to the community, we expect people to come to those town halls. I think this is a similar issue that we expect too much of our student body to engage with us and not do enough to actually go out there. Whether it's holding external office hours, whether it's establishing roundtable discussions with students at large, or whether it's just being out in the RSOs. Rose and I want to be able to do that next year. We think the president, vice president have a huge stake in actually going out to the community and listening to them and asking hard questions. We've loved doing that the past 2 weeks. We love doing it the next week and a half as voting, but we want to keep doing that after the campaign is over because most of the people on the stage will probably not be out there. We want to be actual leaders in pioneering that.
Christopher and Trinity?
We both believe that a main facet of increasing administrative transparency and including students into the administration process is instituting a student seat on the Board of Trustees, which is something that we've both been actively involved in instituting here at this university. But there are other projects that we should undertake, not only as president and vice president, but as an organization overall, to make our campus better and make our administration more accountable.
Yeah, and I think echoing a lot of the sentiment by the rest of the candidates, making sure that USG doesn't operate in a bubble. I think there's been a lot of discussion about how students know that USG exists, but that's often all they know about USG. We need to do a lot more outreach, and we need to do a lot more incorporation of these organizations in our governance. It's not enough to just talk to you. We need to make sure that your voices and your decisions are actually being factored into the decisions that we are making with you. So I think those are the biggest things we can do is make sure we have diverse student representation at all levels of university decision making and that goes including USG decision making.
Christine Miles.
So I really think that the USG or USC town halls are extremely a really great way for students to connect with administrators. If you show up to these town hall meetings, you can actually voice your own opinions and ask direct questions to people like President Carol Folt or Provost Winston Christ, and it's a great resource. The problem, however, is that at these town halls, realistically, only USG students are present at them, and so for Miles and I, it's really working to increase this demographic and making sure that not just USG members are at these events, but that campus leaders, that RSO members, and that as many community leaders and members as possible are present at these events so that they have a stake in the policy that's being enacted in their own school.
And I think a lot of the responses here have identified a larger cultural issue where students do not feel that USG is accessible and do not feel that they have a stake in what USG is doing and what in turn the decisions in turn that are happening at the school. We are committed to changing that. Part of the reason we're running is because that we didn't feel like our voices were being heard. We want to make sure that our voices and the voices of others are heard, that the entire Trojan family feels that they matter to this in the scope of decisions being made at the school.
And for the last piece, sorry.
That's cool. That's cool.
All right, this question is specifically for Christopher's ticket. Your platform aims to put a student on the board of trustees. How do you plan on doing this, and is this feasible to ask the nominating and governance committee?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I think that it is a lot more feasible than a lot of people are giving it credit for. About 21% of private universities as of 2016 had a student on their board of trustees, and the majority of those institutions have overwhelmingly positive experiences with their student trustees. It's usually only people who have never tried it that think it's a bad idea. And I think the bottom line is that we cannot use something being difficult as an excuse not to try it. We cannot use a difficult road as a road not to go down. The benefits of having a student at that level, a student that can voice our concerns, far outweigh the potential difficulties of making it happen. So I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know if we can make it happen. I'm incredibly optimistic that we can, but I am absolutely going to do everything I can to institute it.
Sara and Rohit, your platform says that you want to increase student representation. What does this mean?
Are you referring to student representation on the board of trustees? Okay, yes. So exactly echoing what Chris said, I believe that the lack of transparency and even going as far as saying scandals at the university have been a result of a lack of transparency within administration and communicating the decisions that are being made at the administrative level. We need to ensure that students really have a voice and can echo what the students want to see. And this isn't only included in USG. We want to expand this opportunity to all students. We know that the president and vice president have access and meetings with the board of trustees, but how can Rohit and I are running on a platform that really wants to enhance all student voices, and that really led to the creation of our team. We represent the most organizations of any ticket, and we really want to take advantage of that opportunity and bringing those voices to the table.
For the others, would you do this, and is this possible? Let's start with Christine and Miles.
I definitely agree with all the other tickets in terms of instituting a student on the board of trustees, and also by really empowering other students and really enhancing the representation that we have within the board of trustees. I would even go further to extend this invitation personally to individual campus leaders and really invite them to our administrative meetings. We know that the USG president and vice president have the incredible opportunity of speaking with directly with USC administrators. We think that it would be so beneficial to increase transparency, increase student representation, and to prevent communication dilution by implementing a way to personally extend an invitation to campus leaders to come to these meetings.
And as an executive officer in 2 organizations on campus, I know that I personally would appreciate being looped into conversations that are being had with the administration, making sure that my organization's values are being promoted, and that really that all student voices are being heard, not just the ones that are within USG.
Truman and Rose?
I want to be clear, we completely agree that there should be a student on the board of trustees, first and foremost. The biggest reason that we've had to date for that not happening is the chairman of the board, Rick Caruso, giving a reason for fiduciary liability. There is a clause in the bylaws of the university where the board can, by resolution, release fiduciary liability of any officer of the university, including board members. We want to be able to circumvent that, make sure that the student happens, and make sure that it is a non-voting member, so that it's actually more feasible to get it on there, because a lot of student trustees are non-voting members in the current university.
And I think even moving beyond that, this is again moving back to our advisory councils. I think this is something, like Truman echoed earlier, that we need to have representation in every single aspect of this administration. We deserve to have a voice in all of these big changes that are being made. We deserve to know what's going on. And I think this begins with implementing these advisory councils and working to put students working directly with the administration.
Alrighty, thank you. Let's move on to the USG budget. The 2019 to 2020 budget allots almost $600,000 to the Concerts Committee, more than the bottom 10 assemblies and committees combined. While many students are no doubt excited for Spring Fest at the Coliseum, the Student Assembly for Gender Empowerment, for example, receives only about 1/10 of what Concerts Committee does. Is there anything you would change about the allocation of funds in the budget? Let's begin with Christine and Miles.
That's a great question. So we do recognize that the Concerts Committee is given almost, I can't do math, so sorry, but $600,000 is a lot of money. Guys, I'm a political science student. I never want to look at numbers ever again. But besides that point, I really do resonate with the fact that a lot of our other programming boards do need necessary funds in order to complete their mission and visions within those programming boards. For us, something that we notice with the Concerts Committee specifically is that though they have this large fund, they can definitely be more effective in and strategic in their ways of marketing. We understand that they have creative independence and independence as a committee, but we want to make sure that as USG leaders, we want to make sure that they are continuously being strategic and effective in terms of their marketing, so that we can allocate those funds to other programming boards that need it.
That's all the time we have. I'm sorry. Sara and Rohit.
So I think it's important that while the programming committee has its allocated budget currently, there's a lot more space for them to bring in students who aren't often represented by these events. They host the most attended event, Spring Fest, but there are other areas where the programming committee could come in and team up with other advisory committees to ensure that other students who aren't often, given an experience like Spring Fest, to have them vouched for in our budget.
Definitely, yes. Just echoing what Rohit said, we understand that concerts is a very popular event at USC, but we also need to look at supporting other organizations, and Rohit and I really do plan on extensively looking at the budget and ensuring that we are having the most effective allocations of money towards organizations and really getting a strict breakdown of each budget item.
Thank you. Truman and Rose.
We definitely agree that there needs to be reallocation priorities in terms of the budget. There's not enough money going to advocacy projects, there's not enough money going to RSO funding, but obviously, of course, we have a limited budget. The biggest thing that we want to promote in USG is budget maximization, making every single student dollar count. Every single student in this room pays $64.50 a semester to USG, and I don't think you see it enough. We want to be able to change that and maximize every dollar spent, every cent spent for USG.
And again, echoing what other candidates said, I think it's really important to bring diversity into the concerts experience. It's incredibly important one. For most of us in this room, this was the first touchstone for what USG was. But with that being said, LSA, BSA, Quaza, ESA, every student assembly, every committee in USG should have a stake in concerts committee and be able to promote themselves, so it can really be a truly USG-wide event and not just focused on one part of the organization.
Thank you.
Christopher and Trinity.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this isn't a hypothetical. I was the only senator that voted against the USG budget this year because I thought that It's kind of ridiculous to have one committee's budget keep increasing year after year when it's already receiving about 20% of the overall USG budget. I have utmost respect for the work the Concerts Committee does. I don't want to get that confused here. But I think that there's a reasoning used a lot of times that Concerts Committee has the most well-attended events, the biggest events, so therefore they should receive the most funding. I think if you gave anyone $600,000, they could make a pretty big event. I don't think that's necessarily a causation versus correlation thing there. So I absolutely agree, and it's one of our platform points that we need to look at the budget and make sure that we are advocating for student services, advocacy work, and cultural assemblies first and foremost, as well as maintaining diverse concert experiences that bring together the entire Trojan family.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to a different part of the budget, your stipends. Each of the presidential candidates on this stage today are currently being paid anywhere between $1,000 to $6,000 each year for your work at USG. What have you personally done to earn that money from students' programming fees? We're going to begin with Sara and Rohit.
That is an excellent question. Currently, I am a USG senator, as I stated before. I'm the only senator who's had the opportunity, with my Senator Garland. We've met with administrators such as Dr. Folt, Chris Klinger, David Wright, really the administrators that can enact change. Through these, we've started conversations on, installing or getting rid of taxes in the village for students because we are trying to make the cost of living more affordable. We are looking at ensuring that there are discounts at Target and Trader Joe's if you present your USC student ID card. I am working with the other senators on installing free menstrual products in all gender-neutral restrooms and residential buildings. Just highlighting a few of my things. I want to get Rohit some back.
Okay. So I'm currently director of funding, and my main job in USG is giving organizations the opportunity to extend their ideas and pursue all of their goals they have for their organization. I realize that organizations play a huge role in your experience here at USC, and I believe my role has been directly helpful in having a lot of people find their home here.
Thank you. Truman and Rose.
As an executive officer in USG, I won't lie, I do 16 office hours a week and I get paid $6,000 a year. But you can ask any single member in USG and they can tell you I'm in that office 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, making things happen for you. You can bet that I'm going to do that as your president.
As a senator, I hold 8 office hours a week, and oftentimes I'm doing work outside of those 8 office hours. I've been working really hard this semester on establishing a performing arts fund for performing arts students who are graduating to cut the financial burden of going into the workforce. This is something that has personally affected me as my past as a professional ballet dancer. Working with financial literacy to lower the stress of financial costs for students here on this campus, as well as been working to revise the absence policies from both a mental health perspective and making coming to class more accessible, as well as for the religious populations here on campus who have to make decisions, like myself, of whether to observe your holiday or come to class that day, and it's something that I don't personally think students should have to negotiate.
Thank you. Christopher and Trinity.
I'd just like to start off by saying I don't get paid, so I'm with you all.
And then much like Sara and Rose, I'm also a senator, so I get paid $2,000 for our 8 office hours a week, which equals out to I think $11 an hour. So most of you who have student worker jobs are actually getting paid more than us right now. But on that note, I also just want to respond a little bit to what Sara was saying. I love you. You're definitely not the only senator to have met with those administrators you mentioned. As far as the work we've been doing this year, if you haven't seen me on Trustees the last couple days, I apologize. On Monday, I had a conference call with Metrolink to talk about public transit subsidies, so I wasn't able to get out there during my lunch break. Yesterday, I had a meeting with the Student Health Center to talk about making the website more accessible, so I wasn't able to get out there on my lunch break. I believe in finishing the job that I promised you I was going to do when I ran for Senate before I focus on the job that I want next. So that's what I can say to that.
Sara, you were mentioned. Would you like to respond?
I was not aware of this, but Senator McMorran always, doing the most. I commend him. That's all. Thank you.
Just sticking with the rules. Christine and Miles, your turn.
So I really think this is a great question because it really comes from, it's really a testament to the culture that surrounds USG as a whole. The reality is that no one knows what USG is, no one knows what USG does, and no one knows what resources USG offers to the student body. That's a reality, and that's where this question is coming from. Because if you've seen Trenton and Maheen, you know that they may have a requirement of 20 hours per week, but they are literally living in that office. Once you sign yourself to, once you have the opportunity to have an e-board position, it's pretty much signing over your soul to USG and it's dedication and passion and service. And they're doing incredible things, but the reality is that we need to continue to promote USG and make sure that our student body knows what our executive officers are doing behind closed doors.
So when Christine asked me to be her running mate, and I actually had no idea that there was a stipend in place for USG officers. And so because really I'm in this for you, I'm in this for the Trojan family, I'm here to make meaningful change happen because I care about you and I care about the Trojans to come next.
Thank you. Alrighty, now we're going to move on to our third and final section, sustainability. First question is for the Truman and Rose ticket. UCLA has begun developing a policy to phase out single-use plastics, something that's echoed in your platform to improve sustainability at USC. How are you planning to achieve this, and how will it be enforced?
Sorry. First of all, I'm quite frankly disappointed that UCLA is beating us on this. I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I'm a little disappointed, and it's something that my friends at UCLA constantly rub in my face. Again, yes, this is an incredibly important part of our platform because we recognize how much of an impact making this small change can have on our community. This would be working with FMS, auxiliary services, who are directly handling the selling of products in seeds and lemonade, stuff like that. I'd be working with them to help move this out of our restaurants here, out of our food shops here, excuse me. And this is something that has the impact to make an incredibly large change on our campus and beat the Bruins.
Yeah, and I think the biggest part about our sustainability plan is setting really, really aggressive goals for LA 2028, making sure that USC is at the forefront of sustainability in higher education and in Southern California. We need to set high goals and give landmarks to achieve that. We want to work directly with the Sustainability Steering Committee, with ESA, with ECOR, and plenty of other organizations and administrators on this campus to actually do that this year and beyond.
Thank you. Now we're going to open up the sustainability question to everyone. Let's begin with Christopher and Trinity.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think something I've been saying a lot recently is that we're in a really unique place with sustainability right now at USC because I usually view the job of USG to bring attention to things that the administration is not already aware of. And thank God we have Carol Folt for sustainability now because we've done a complete 180. But it leaves USG in an interesting position because we no longer have to convince the administration that sustainability is a priority. They agree with us that it's a priority. And in response to the single-use plastics thing, I don't know if y'all saw Carol Folt's email that was sent out, I think it was yesterday, but I mentioned in there, she said that USC is going to start phasing out non-essential single-use plastics. So I think that's fantastic. But it makes us really challenged to look towards the future of sustainability and what it means to really be environmentally friendly and to look at the intersectionality that environmentally friendly practices and climate change and everything has in general so that we aren't just looking at numbers, but we're looking at how it affects people and what we can do to make sure that we are being responsible with our investments, being responsible with our practices, and living up to the promise that we've made to people.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm out of time.
No, okay.
Might be.
Christine and Miles.
So what's really awesome about President Folt is that she's really working on a lot of initiatives such as phasing out single plastic use or also implementing composting bins into residential housing as well. As President Folt is taking on these more snappy initiatives, as we like to call it, for us we want to tackle sustainability on a different front, and for us that means education, because Miles and I really understand that sustainability is also a systemic issue like mental health, and for us it means that we have to tackle it at all fronts. And to begin, we really want to make sure that within USG, we are implementing sustainability practices, especially by spearheading initiatives with our Director of Sustainability herself.
So one of the first things that you're taught as an engineer is that if you want to solve tough problems, you have to work together. Sustainability is one of the toughest, and environmental issues are some of the toughest issues facing this campus. And we want to make sure that we're working with and funding organizations that are practicing sustainable practices, such as eliminating single-use plastics from their events.
Thank you. Sara and Rohit.
So we totally agree that we should get rid of single-use plastic cups and increasing compost bins on campus. But we really believe that the future of sustainability is focused on divesting away from fossil fuels. We can talk about small initiatives. They're not small; they're really impactful. But the future of being green at USC is divesting away from fossil fuels and bringing statistics like how the UC system pledged their $13.4 billion endowment fossil-free, and how they saw $150 million, how they sold $150 million of their assets and saw a $2.4 billion increase. These are the conversations we need to be having with administrators, and this is the future of USC actually being green.
We also want to make sure that sustainability is a really big part of the culture here on campus. Daphne Armstrong started Sup Cups, and that's just one idea of how we can innovate in sustainability. Obviously, it needs to be put down on paper. It needs to be a legitimate part of the culture here. But being open to ideas for creativity and for innovation and sustainability could allow USC to sort of transform what sustainability means on the West Coast and for higher education.
Thank you. Next question is we begin with the Christine and Miles ticket. You plan to establish a director of sustainability to promote sustainable practices and help USG sustainability efforts. What kind of power will this position have, and what kind of visible change could we expect to see?
So again, to reiterate, the platform that Miles and I are running on is making sure that each individual, down to their very core, knows what sustainability looks like within their own life. And this begins with education, and we really think that we really want to spearhead these initiatives and educational toolkits, beginning with the Director of Sustainability. She has a wealth of resource and knowledge, and the fact that she hasn't been able to achieve many different things because of lack of funding or support this past year is simply just a shame. So for us in this upcoming year, we look forward to working with her to establish educational toolkits, resources that can further be distributed to RSOs so that we all know what sustainability looks like within our own lives.
Thank you. Now to the other tickets, expanding upon this question. What specific policies could we see in sustainability from your administration in the first semester? Let's begin with Truman and Rose.
So we were recently at an ESA meeting where they announced that they're working on an advocacy project to implement first-year sustainable education. We have a diverse student body here, and we all come from different backgrounds and different perspectives, and part of that is not knowing which recycle things go in which stream. There's like a 7-stream process, and even I, from being from the Pacific Northwest where it's super sustainable, I'm not even sure about where to put my recyclables and which stream to put it in. So we need to get, first off, we need to get everyone on the same page in terms of the student body, but then more than that, USG needs to act as a flagship for sustainable education, whether it's in programming, whether it's putting money towards funding resources and restarting the Green Engagement Fund, or whether it's creating resources around sustainable practices and programming for registered student organizations here on campus. USG should emanate from the center, being the huge organization that it is, and should educate USG members, RSOs, and students at large.
Thank you. Christopher and Trinity.
Yeah, I think, I turned my mic off. Sorry. I think day one, we would work to increase funding for student organizations as well as anyone who submits a funding application, as long as they agree to either go through sustainability training or meet strict sustainability guidelines. I think that's a non-punitive way that we can really encourage groups to ensure that their practices are sustainable. In addition, as some other candidates were mentioning, I think that we need to ensure that folks know best practices for sustainability. I've worked for orientation for 2 or 3 years, and I think that we can do a lot more to make sure that every student coming into USC is aware of best practices for sustainability through orientation as well as through pre-enrollment training. And then beyond that, I think including things like pushing for more 3-stream waste containers around campus and making sure that we are being conscientious with our energy and water consumption are big things we should do, but the biggest thing USG can do is increase funding for those groups that are being models of what best practices look like.
Thank you. Sara and Rohit.
Yeah, in regards to sustainability, we totally agree with Christina Myers in saying that education is really important, and we want to create a module similar to Alcohol EDU or the bystander intervention training that is sent out to registered student organizations to ensure that students really know how to be sustainable on campus. We also want to ensure that dining halls have organic compost bins. I recently went to EDK, not by choice, and I saw that they had removed the compost bins. So we definitely want to reinstall those and ensure students know how to actually use them. We also want to install sustainable food options. Stanford currently uses like 47% of all their food from locally farmed vendors, and we want to ensure that we keep up with these model universities. And we also want to bring student leaders to the conversations we're having with administration about sustainability. Nathaniel has done an amazing job of leading ESA, and with Claire as well. So shout out both of us. And we just want to ensure that they are invited in the conversation.
With 3 metro stations around USC, many students rely on public transportation to get them to and from campus outside of free Lyft hours. However, those $175 rides can add up. How would you assist students with their transportation needs? And let's start with Christopher and Trinity.
You just made my night. I think that making sure public transit is more accessible is absolutely crucial for pretty much every aspect of our campaign. It makes college more affordable, more accessible. It's good for our environment. It's good for our community. It gets folks out into the surrounding community so that we're not such a bubble. I have been spending the last year working to push for public transit subsidies. Under the program that we are proposing, students would pay a flat fee of somewhere between $50 and $60, and for that they would receive a Metro U-Pass, which would give them unlimited rides for the entire semester on any Metro Rail, local bus, or Metro bus. And we are really excited about the progress that we've been making with that, but yeah, stay tuned.
Christine and Miles.
Yeah, so the actual Lyft program, free Lyft ride program, was a original USG spearheaded initiative, and so it's so great to see something as successful as that being taken off and being utilized by the student body. For us, I personally, for one, am not really educated on how to use the metro system or how to use public transportation. And so something that Miles and I are working on is to continue this education-based toolkits by creating resource guides that can be distributed to RSOs to try to promote education and awareness so that students know that this resource is available. It's not the fact that USG doesn't have these resources available to students, it's simply the matter that students just don't know about them. So for us, it's trying to extend our reach as far as possible so that students know that we are a resource here and we're here to support them, whether it be something as simple as using the Metro or the other public transportation services.
You're actually out of time, I'm sorry. Let's go to Sara and Rohit.
So yeah, we really want to ensure that public transportation here at USC is accessible. I have to take the shuttle to HSC when I do research, and I know that the shuttle services end at 8 p.m. I believe, so we really want to ensure that they are operating at all hours of the night while also implementing an LAX flyaway program for students who want to get to and from the airport. It's not really feasible to pay $30 every time you want to go to LAX. We really want to install a shuttle program that can take students to and from their destination. Additionally, we really want to do a sustainability review of transportation vehicles that are at USC. We need to make sure that we are being sustainable in all aspects. So, and just really, again, echoing what Christina and Miles said, navigating public transportation can be really tricky. I know I've gotten lost in the metro system, so ensuring that USG does a really great job of designing a layout of how to navigate public transportation.
Truman and Rose.
Yeah, so I was actually fortunate enough to be able to work with Chris on the Metro US initiative alongside Senator Emily Donahue. We released a survey and got a bunch of results and presented that to the the Office of Transportation. And obviously we got some great feedback on that, and we hope to have an update for you soon. But more than that, and more than just getting USC students sustainable transportation, we also want to think about installing a zero emissions fleet for USC, making sure that our own transportation networks are sustainable, and that's something we hope to establish in the 2028 plan before the decade is out.
Yeah, public transportation is extremely important part of the USC. It was something that got me to my job every day last semester, taking the Metro and 2 buses. And again, to echo the desire to have a sustainable transportation system here is to also have EV subsidies. So if you are driving an electric car here as a student, you have an option to get a subsidy and to get paid back for helping to save the environment.
Thank you. And this is our last question of the night. Is there anything you'd be able to do to ensure that USC's sustainability efforts flow out to benefit the wider South Los Angeles community? Let's start with Christine Miles.
So I think that one thing that we can all agree on is that the air quality in Los Angeles is frankly concerning. By working on these sustainable initiatives, by reducing our emissions through things such as taking public transport and promoting public transport, we are able to reduce our overall carbon footprint, make the air cleaner to breathe, and preserve this community for future generations of Trojans.
I think that that's a great question because right now, as a university, there is still kind of some discrepancies in where we stand on sustainability ourselves. So once we've kind of established who we are and what we stand for in terms of sustainability and are very strong on our front, I think then we are ready enough to extend a helping hand to communities. Because how can we extend a helping hand if we ourselves are not fundamentally stable enough on our own sustainability platforms? But we do know that minority communities are most affected by climate change themselves. So for us to have an impact and to help these communities will be so crucial and so important.
Truman and Rose?
We all agree that sustainability is a massive issue and a massive thing that needs to be addressed here on campus. And we want to do this by helping to work to help make an aggressive 2028 sustainability plan. This is working with the steering committee, with administrations to make these goals actually achievable and actually happen in the next 8 years, and hopefully sooner. We'd like to work with the academic senate here to help lobby on the Green New Deal, because the reality is sustainability affects every single person. It affects the USC community, the Los Angeles community, it affects the global community. And we owe it to ourselves, to the future Trojans. We have a responsibility and obligation to fight for this and to make sure that we have the most sustainable campus as possible, and to ensure that there is a future legacy here of Trojans to exist here in a sustainable world.
Christopher and Trinity?
Oh, yeah.
As probably the youngest candidate on the stage tonight, I would like to echo Rose's sentiments that this should be something that's enacted for the legacy of future Trojans. I think that, sustainability and sustainability efforts shouldn't stop with us. We should make sure not only that we have established a strong basis for how to make our community, not just on campus, but in South Los Angeles as sustainable as possible, but also that we're giving future Trojans the resources to continue that work, which is something that I'm deeply committed to, not only here at USC, but in my life in general. And as Christine said earlier, sustainability is an issue that disproportionately, is affecting minority students and minoritized communities. So it's important that we make sure that sustainability is made affordable for our students who might be low income or who might not simply have the knowledge about what is and isn't sustainable. And I think that as we do that for our students, we'll be able to continue those efforts for our community members.
And finally, Sara and Rohit.
Rohit and I were both really optimistic about the future of USC in terms of sustainability, with Dr. Fold by our side now. And as president, I really believe that we can really mimic UNC Chapel Hill, which is leading in sustainability in the US. We really want to focus on, in USG, restructuring the green funding branch to ensure that, we are taking sustainability measures. As president and vice president, we can only really control the resources that are in our in our branch, and we also want to ensure that we are pushing administration to really accomplish goals that we have set in place, such as divesting away from fossil fuels and reinvesting in renewable energies. Then and only then when we can actually have a green university.
I think it's also important to highlight that some ideas of sustainability wouldn't be working outside of these campus walls just due to the difference in lifestyle. So there are schools such as the University of Chicago and BU who are also in urban areas that actually work with city councils to make sure that ideas are actually facilitated and sustainable.
Thank you, candidates, for answering our questions. Now we will move on to the audience portion of the night. If you would like to ask the candidates a question, please line up next to Trevor on my left. We only have time for 3 tonight, so please choose your questions wisely.
How is it only 3?
Alrighty, guys, we're going to give you 3 minutes. If you'd like to leave, please leave. We only have time, like we said, for 3 questions. We do want to let you guys get going.
Hi everyone, my name is Ruby. I'm the executive editor of USC Media. I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight and thank USG for helping also organize this debate. And it's live stream, it's Facebook live stream, and also I apologize, I messed up the closed caption part. I'm going to have another video with closed caption and hopefully upload on YouTube and let everyone know about it. I apologize for that. And also for the pizza delay, also was communication with the pizza vendors, so also apologize for that. But let's go to the audience question.
Hi, good evening everyone. I'm Vanya. I'm the Director for Elections and Recruitment at USG. Before you all move to audience questions and you all start leaving, I just want to say to give a huge round of applause for Ann and Burke for hosting the debate and always partnering with USG. Thank you so much. And also a huge round of applause to all the candidates for preparing so well. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, let's begin with our audience questions. A quick reminder, the rules of the audience portion remain the same as before. Each candidate gets 1 minute to answer and 30 seconds to respond if they are mentioned. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, good job so far. When you're president, you manage an executive board of 8, a team of 115, and a student body of 20,000. Those are just the students. You also act as a liaison between university admin, staff, and faculty. How do you plan to prioritize and balance these stakeholders effectively?
Let's begin with Christopher and Trinity.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. I know that in the past it's been a challenge for some USG executives to really reach the scope of their role. And I think that that is unfortunate because it shows a big missed opportunity to really affect change. As I was saying earlier, the biggest way that USG can get shit done, is through soft power and through having those relationships with administrators and with the rest of campus. And I think that the way to make sure that we don't get burned out, that we maintain those relationships in the best way possible, is by having regular times where we check in with all the campus groups that we all been meeting with throughout the past several weeks. I think the biggest problem with USG is that you all see so much of us for about 3 weeks, and then we disappear off the face of the earth for the rest of the year. And that should not happen. We should not just be up in 224 and TCC, we should be down here meeting with you throughout the year, talking with you, talking with the administrators to make sure that we are acting as what our constitutional obligation is as the chief representative of the students, not the chief representative of me. And I think that we need to make sure that we are consistently meeting with students and then maintaining the team that we have as our outreach to administrators. It shouldn't all be on 2 people, it should be on everyone.
Thank you. Sara and Rohit.
So our biggest mistake as president and vice president would be trying to do everything ourselves. We understand that a position as president and vice president is a position that is run by collaboration with different organizations, and we're really looking forward, if we get the positions, to working with student leaders across campus. We are responsible for operating USG and the members inside USG, but we also are responsible for communicating all the updates and legislation and initiatives to the rest of the student body, just to increase and improve accessibility. So we really look forward to not only improving these relationships that we've formed, not only in the past 2 weeks, but throughout our past 2 and 3 years here at USC, but also ensuring that all student voices are being heard.
Thank you. Christina Miles.
So it's a great question. Thank you so much. As leaders, you're really going to see a lot of the president and vice president's face within the upcoming year. But realistically, it's not just the two of us working within USG by ourselves. It's our whole team backing us, supporting us, and really being there for us and making sure that we're doing okay. And so really, it's not just the two of us up there, but it's a whole team working together. And we really look forward to the restructuring initiative as well, because it's going to allow for consolidation and more effective collaboration moving forward.
Speaking personally, I understand and I've seen how taxing this role can be, and I'm honestly just so grateful to be in this with Christine. Christina supported me every step of the way, and I feel like it's been mutual in that regard. I know that if elected, we'll be obviously working a lot together, so I'm so excited to be on this journey with her.
And Truman and Rose.
As the only executive officer up here tonight, I manage 30 staff and one entire branch of USG. Rose has been the leader of 2 different organizations here on campus. We have 5 years of on-campus leadership experience outside of USG. We have relationships across students, staff, faculty, senior administrators, and campus partners. We know exactly how to do this. We have partnered and worked with and collaborated across campus with a number of different individuals, with a number of different teams, and on a number of different projects. And our slogan is strength and unity. I think I speak in similar tone that you can't do everything alone. We are two students trying to represent 20,000. That comes down to partnerships, and we know exactly how to build those partnerships and leverage the existing relationships we already have.
Alrighty, thank you. Let's move on to our next question. Thank you so much. Alrighty, next question.
Hi, my question is for Rose, actually. How is your position in Trojans for Israel going to affect how you approach issues related to the Israel-Palestine conflict, and in particular, the on-campus BDS?
You're right, I have spent the past 2 years leading Trojans for Israel. It's been a really important part of my USC experience. I would like to say, though, regarding international politics, I think all of us up here are working to help fix the campus community right now, and I think focusing on these issues that are happening on campus should be the core of every single person on this stage. I want to advocate for every student here. I'm a queer Jewish woman. I've been spending my entire life advocating for myself, and I think those skills I have will transfer into whatever population. I really want to work to represent every single student, and it's something that is incredibly important to me. Thank you for the question.
I'm going to open that up to the rest of the candidates. Would anyone like to comment on USG and your position with the international community? Go ahead.
I believe, as being the second most, we have the second highest number of international students across any other school in this country after NYU. So that perspective needs to be accounted for in debates regarding international issues and regarding international policies. We, as a student organization, cannot make a stance on these topics, but we should be providing a platform for students on both ends to be issuing their voice and not hurting anyone else's in that process.
Echoing what Rohit said, we represent so many diverse students here on campus, so taking a direct stance would subsequently obviously affect different groups, and our main priority is to protect all students, so that's really the message that we're trying to send out.
Thank you. Would any of the other tickets like to comment? Go ahead.
I think that when you fail to take a stand for things, that you can fall for anything. And that doesn't mean that we have to alienate any student, and that doesn't mean we have to alienate any one community. But we can make sure to stand up for what's right. And I think that's how Christopher and I will approach not just USG, but every effort in our lives.
I just want to quote our esteemed President Carol L. Folt, who recently said that not taking action is just as political as taking action. And I think the biggest thing that USG can do is just ensure that we are lifting up every group on campus that is oppressed or has historically been a part of conflict, and making sure that we are allowing all voices to be heard in a way that really maintains the diversity that we need to have.
Christina Miles.
So USC doesn't exist in a bubble. Issues that occur outside of this campus's walls are inevitably going to impact this campus and the students who call it home. As such, we need to be working to understand these issues, how they impact the diverse communities we represent, and then how we can support them, ensure that everyone feels like they have a place on campus and that USG as an organization is supporting them.
All right, thank you. Last question, I promise.
Hi, my question is for Sara and Rohit. So as you may know, I'm the only senator who is a transfer student, and so I've felt the impacts of being a transfer student firsthand. And I've noticed that your platform talks about the transfer forgiveness program and a mentorship program. The transfer forgiveness program is something Christopher McMorran and I have worked extensively on with the transfer student community and also with Senator Ben Rosenthal. And we're actually, after meeting with administration for all of first semester and working on a resolution for over 2 semesters, we're finally getting it passed and we're finally getting it implemented by the administration. Also, transfer student community has they've had a mentorship program in place for the last 2 years. So I would just like to know what else your platform, what else you would like to see and what else you will be doing for transfer students, spring admits, and transfer spring admits.
Well, thank you for asking that. First of all, I'd like to commend you and all the work that you've done on Senate. It's honestly been a pleasure working with you and Senator McMorran. And I really want to commend you on the work because the transfer student population is one that really needs to be advocated for. And I've seen a lot of initiatives that have been passed and have failed to actually be seen through after senators or the existing PVP have left their term. We would want to ensure that we see this to fruition. Additionally, with the mentorship program, we have heard a lot of frustration in regards to the fact that students aren't being matched based off of their similar interests. So we really wanted to create an involvement survey so when incoming students, whether they be freshmen or transfer students, have the opportunity to take a survey that matches their interests to already existing organizations on campus so that they can fully be integrated within the community on the first day they step onto campus.
Thank you. Christina Miles, you look ready to go.
Thank you, and thank you for all the work you've done in Senate. It's quite wonderful. Inclusion of spring admit and transfer students is extremely important to both Christina and I. Regardless of how or when you're admitted to USC, you are a member of the Trojan family. To talk about some concrete goals that we have to improve the spring admit and transfer experience, there's a inequity in orientation programs between fall admits and spring admits, and we want to ensure that those are addressed and that students are experiencing the same attention from USG included at these events. Furthermore, one thing that we've observed is that many students find their communities on campus through being involved in student organizations. However, many student organizations have limited recruitment in the spring, which automatically which to some extent excludes students who are stepping foot on campus for the first time. We want to work with these student organizations to advocate for equal recruitment practices in both the fall and the spring, and also work to improve the involvement fair, potentially hosting on a weekend so that more students are able to attend and find their communities.
Truman and Rose.
We think that one big part about the transfer student community is that there's just not enough awareness of resources, and we want to be able to change that. We were fortunate enough to be able to visit the transfer student community organization this past week. And one of the big things that we actually found out through meeting one of the RAs for the transfer student interest housing was that there was actually transfer student special interest housing. a lot of transfer students didn't actually know that that existed, and until coming to USC a lot later, they weren't able to participate in that because they weren't aware of that. So we need to make sure that when we're onboarding new people to our community, they're aware of those specific resources.
All right, Christopher and Trinity.
Yeah, as everyone else has said, thank you, Angela, for everything you've done this year. And I just also wanted to clarify with the transfer student forgiveness proposal that allows transfer students to retake any class that they got a D or lower on in their first semester. And that's no longer a proposal. As of next year, that will be university policy. So that's not just something we're talking about, that's something we do. And I'm so incredibly proud of that. And I also got the opportunity to chat with the transfer student community earlier this week, but we didn't meet them earlier this week. I met them about 18 months ago. And I've been working with them ever since. I know I've said I've been working on a lot of stuff a long time, but I truly have spent my entire time in USG working on transfer student issues. And I think we can do a lot more to improve orientation experiences, and that's already a conversation we've started with the Office of Orientation Programs, as well as make sure that students have resources that are equal to students starting in the fall, or to students who aren't transferring, and then the spring admits have access to university resources in the fall if they choose to move to the area near campus before they start. Thank you, and
That concludes our audience portion of the debate. Now each of the candidates gets 90 seconds for their closing statements. Sara and Rohit, we will start with you.
The undergraduate experience here has such a defining impact on your future, on your perception of the future, and where you see your ideas carrying out. Sara and I are running because we have found a home here at campus. We love being a Trojan. We want to extend that opportunity and that access to every single Trojan on campus here.
The ideas we brought to you tonight represent the intersection of our experience and our vision for this campus. Where we see problems, we've identified feasible solutions that we believe we can implement next year. And the role of USG has typically been to speak on your behalf, but Rohit and I don't want to just speak. We want to listen, engage, and act on your behalf.
This means bringing every single one of y'all to the forefront of every single issue that affects you. You have a demanding presence here on campus, and it's about time the admin hears that voice.
We just want to say that the legacy of this institution has been at stake, and students really have the most important role in shaping that. The University of Southern California has never been in a more exciting position for change, and as your next president and vice president, we hope to bring more students into those conversations and really ensure that all your voices are being heard.
Truman and Rose.
Thank you so much to Annenberg Media, the other candidates, the audience members both here and online. Thank you for participating in this conversation. But we don't want this conversation to end here. We've talked about a lot of things tonight. Student experience, sustainability, transparency. These are all very important issues here, and we hope that you come and engage with us and talk about these issues and help us learn how we can help you, how we can listen, how we can help make your student experience a better one here at USC.
As part of our plan to engage with the entire USC community next year and make sure that USG is the organization for student concerns, Rose and I would actually like to formally announce that tonight. If we are elected as your next president, vice president, we're going to use the remainder of our nights for the rest of the semester to go on the engagement tour, which will be visiting student organizations, resident halls, student communities, and typically underrepresented students that have been neglected by USG in years prior. And we want to be actually out in the community being us.
We understand that 2 people cannot represent 20,000, but we want this to be an opportunity to bring your voice to the table, bring a chair to the table with the administration, and let them listen, because we need students here to unite the campus, and it is with all of your help that we can make this a possibility. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Christine Miles.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I am the leader that I am today because of people like you, whether it be my family, my friends, or complete strangers who have really supported me throughout this campaign. So for that, I am so thankful. In its most ideal form, USG is supposed to provide the necessary building blocks so that every undergraduate student can call this place their home. As your next USG leaders, we are going to ensure that we uphold this responsibility and make sure that we realistically represent every student's voice here on campus.
Over the course of tonight, we've outlined our goals and initiatives which will serve to improve and redefine the undergraduate experience. But there's a difference between interest and commitment to change. We are not just interested in change, we are committed to it. We've seen the energy, the passion that you all bring to this campus. We've seen your drive for service and advocacy. And most importantly, we've seen that you are ready for change.
At the end of the day, you decide what leaders you want. We know that you deserve leaders that will support you every step of the way and that will advocate for you until the very end. That's why you deserve leaders like Miles and I. Two individuals from two different communities within and outside of USG, united by our dedication and passion of service to you, our Trojan family. Thank you.
And finally, Christopher and Trinity.
Thank you. I think, as I've been saying all night, Trinity and I are here because we are students just like you. We are not some weird, student government breed. Yeah. And we deeply, deeply care about all of the issues that we are working on and have been working on. And we are here for policy. We care deeply about making USC better, about working with administrators to really enact these things and to make sure that we are driving our student body in a way that aligns with our morals, with our ethics, and with making USC more affordable, more accessible for everybody. I would encourage you all, as you've probably picked up on, you've noticed that a lot of the candidates have pretty much the same platform points. So you're gonna need to look beyond that and see who you really trust to follow through with what they've promised, to follow through with managing the organization, and to follow through with being that committed person to push forward the policy that you elect. And I can say that Trinity and I have done that our entire lives. I am so excited to be here, and I hope that you all continue to stay engaged. And on that note, Trinity has something.
We want to invite you all to vote on February 11th through 13th, regardless of if it's for us or for any other candidate. We find it very important that you're not only civically engaged here on campus, but out in the world. So we want you to take your voice and use it. Thanks.
Thank you everyone for participating in this year's USG presidential debate. Thank you, audience and community.
Just repeating basically what Nisha said. Thank you guys so much. If you'd like to rewatch the debate, you can go to uscannonburgmedia.com. This debate was a product of a collaboration between Annenberg Media and USG. Thank you so much to our candidates. Voting begins next week, February 11th. Be sure to make sure and get your voice heard. Thank you.